This one.
Yes, sir. And then turn it off if you're. We need it.
Yeah.
Testing.
Just wanted to ask if you're going to be talking at the podium, talking to the microphone. This is recorded for our minutes purposes as well as being broadcast on our web channel for the public to be able to view. So just please use the microphone so that people can hear you. Also makes my job easier to get the notes right. So appreciate it. Yeah, you if you want to. Perfect. I will need a copy. Perfect.
All right, I'd like to call the July 15th, 2021 Town of Somerville Design Review Board meeting to order. The first order of business is approving the minutes from last month. Are there any clarifications or changes that need to be made? If not, I'd ask for a motion for approval. Bill with the first and Mr. Carpus with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'd like to request, we have a sick board member, so I'd like to request the change of the agenda item, 2 agenda items, and move up lifestyle communities. What's the other one, Carpus? 315 North Magnolia. I'd like to move those to the top of the agenda if we could. Someone like to make a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to move those.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the first order of business then, do you know if the applicant is here?
Old business?
For this one? All right, first order of business then would be lifestyle communities. Then we're going to go through 315 North Magnolia. And then after that would be Springview Townhomes. So I'm going to recuse, but if the applicant for lifestyle communities would come up.
Okay, if you'll state your name, and we'll get rolling.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ross Rabin. I'm the Director of Development for Lifestyle Communities and overseeing the Carolinas. So spending a lot of time in and around Charleston and Summerville area these days. So pleasure to be with you today. And thank you guys for taking the time out of your days to come hear about our project. So I know we've been in front of you guys before, conceptual part of this process, but back before you today, we're requesting preliminary approval of our project as we keep moving forward. So I think you've heard a little bit about who we are, but LC is a fully integrated real estate firm, development group that we have in-house management team, construction team, and development group, and develop projects all across the country, but are very excited about our growth here into the Carolinas, and particularly here in the Low Country in Somerville and Charleston areas. So what we're looking to get developed here in Somerville on this project is a mixed-use project that contains 400 residential units. In the phase one, there'll be a mix of townhomes and apartments, and then a retail component as well. It's about a 15,000 square foot building that includes a full-service restaurant along with a fully scaled amenity package, including a gym and other amenities for the residents, and also portions of that to be open for the public as well. So I think it'll be a wonderful addition to the community, and also serve the amazing growth that's happening in and around Somerville to offer these folks a great option for somewhere to live. So excited to be with you today. I'll introduce the team that'll be presenting today. So with me, we've got our partners at Seaman Whiteside, and we've got Weston McBee, and then Taylor Hart as well. And then our architects on this project, who will be presenting the residential elevations and taking you through some of that process, Kevin Williams with Klein Design. And then I'll be walking you through a little bit more of our amenity concepts and how we envision that looking and integrating with the rest of our community. So with that, I'll invite our friends at Seaman Whiteside to come up and talk about our site plan and kind of walk you through how things have progressed to that point.
Weston McBee. I know some of you work with Seaman and Whiteside. I'll keep it brief on the site here. Our job was to maximize space to lay this thing out and accentuate what was already on the site to begin with. And we feel that doing both of those things helps keep the essence of the place itself, working around existing trees, tree alleys, drainage, which is going to be to the southwest of the site from the road back. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the
Are the monitors not on?
oh, well, I'll just say whatever I want then. Let's continue. Okay, so you can see areas where we've taken the liberties to arrange entrances and main throughways for vehicular access around what was some of the more grand oak trees and existing tree alleys on the site. We feel that is as important to the aesthetic of the area as the architecture that will be shown here in a few minutes. We really tried to work around what it was best there with extensive site research and analysis, working with the town arborist, who you probably know well, who also happened to own previous owner of the property. So he was able to really hone in on the ones that are the best ones to be saving and everything like that. Next slide, please. This is the amenity center. Just to zoom in, you can see a little bit more of the existing trees, which would be the larger stamps in there. And then everything that we're proposing is just to accentuate what's already there and to work with it. Next slide. Yeah, we're just kind of, we can skip through this. I can answer anything on plant palette materials that you'd like, but that's the overview of the site layout and the site itself. So I think if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, Will's going to come up here and talk about the actual architecture.
As Ross stated, my name is Kevin Williams. I'm project designer, Klein Design, and I'm working on the residential component of this project and site. And basically, conceptually, the architecture is meant to relate to the context here in Charleston area. In the Charleston area, Klein Design, we've done several projects in Charleston proper and surrounding areas, and just for precedence, definitely looking at some of the traditional and historic houses, the single houses, those traditional elements that we find, just to create interest within this community, within the neighborhood here, and taking these elements and making sure that as we put these buildings together, we're doing that in a way that's not as repetitive, but taking these different elements and creating interest as you experience this place, kind of walking through the street and whatnot. And so just basic kind of contextual materials being used, siding, details around the windows, local bricks. We're looking at using a Meridian brick that's produced in Colombia. So trying to keep those things local as well, locally sourced, which is important. And you can stop me at any time. I'm just kind of going through. But what you have before you in the package are elevations of a few of the major building types that we have, and also oh yeah, yeah. If you would just, it might be on the end of the.
It's in here. I just have to.
There it is. You could stop, go back one if you don't mind. There we go. So here's just a basic architectural site plan, just showing the building layouts, and they're numbered, and then the arrows are pointing to the buildings of the elevations that are within the packet, just as a wayfinding, just to help you know what you're looking at. The visualization that you see on the very first page of your packet is basically building 7 and 8, which is towards the plan north. You see the arrows around building 7. So those two townhome buildings kind of together, and that's just kind of giving you an idea of the character that we're trying to achieve here with the architecture. And then as you go through the packet, you can go to the next slide. We've included a simple materials legend at the top. Well, at the packet that I've handed out, these are from recently or submitted earlier. But you can see the colors that we were kind of looking at, those low country contextual color palettes that you see in the area, as well as the bricks that we're looking at selecting. We're showing 2 different bricks, very similar in their color and their treatment, but different in their texture. And so we felt that they would go together nicely, but then give a textural kind of quality and difference that will make them render a little bit different one from the other within the scheme. Buildings 1, 3, and 19 on sheet A2.2. These are our flat buildings, our flats. These are basically 1-bedroom apartments that are stacked to create this building type. And then the next building type that you'll see is one of the larger building types, one of the U-shaped buildings. This is buildings 5 and 14. Again, going through that exercise of taking these different units and putting them together in a way that's interesting, that each unit kind of has, for the most part, its own kind of identity within the scheme. Not unlike you would see older historic neighborhoods or towns kind of being put together as things are kind of built one next to the other. Again, just trying to speak to that that style of architecture. And as you move through, you just see kind of the other different sides and facades. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those.
I have a question on your color selections.
Sure.
A couple of them seem to be more appropriate for like Charleston rather than Somerville, like the coral and the aloe. I don't know that there's a lot of precedent for that, but I just maybe reconsider that.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't do it, just they might be a little bit more indicative of what you'd find down
Sure.
the road a little bit.
Duly noted.
I had a couple questions. You're going to regret that. Some of the elevations have a really good sort of breakup of the roof line, which tends to make the individual apartments or individual units more unique, but some of them just have a sort of continuous roof line. And I was hoping you could explain why some, like a 2.1 on the back, really is kind of just a flat plane. Whereas when you look at a 2.2, there's, the smaller buildings are lower and then they go up, which seems a little, some of them are really broken down and then some you're kind of grouping them together. And was that intentional?
It is somewhat, and some of that has to do with the unit plan, as well as just thinking of constructability that on that rear elevation there, where it kind of joins in with the other. It was just a move to keep that line simple, so we're not having conditions that are a little hard to get into and detail out. The comment is valid, and generally we do like to break that up. But I think in that case it was more or less just a way, finding a way to kind of simplify that roof.
But some buildings really do have a rear elevation because it's facing like a private spot. But your buildings, I'm not sure, even though they technically have a front, you can see the front and back from wherever you are in the development. So, just to name rear elevation means, well, it's not really that important, but based on the site plan, it looks like all the elevations are important. And that one, the back looks like it's been sort of oversimplified.
But we can definitely look at ways of trying to bring some of that rest of that character around to that side for sure.
The other ones, it seems like you've done a nice job of breaking up the roof into a pretty reasonable scale. And is
Oh yeah, sure.
Ross Raven, Livestock Communities again. And he mentioned this briefly. I think what you're seeing there, it really is a function of those buildings are a row of the same units. And so they're that's just how they stack in there. But, and so that's why you're seeing so much more variation in some of these larger U-shaped buildings versus those buildings. But again, as he mentioned, we're here for your feedback and your take. And so to the extent that we can provide some variation, as you mentioned, your rear elevation to someone is a front elevation to someone else. So we're taking careful care and adding, some different elements on the back to try and make those presentable and look very nice for everyone within the community. But we certainly can look at some different ways, maybe some different textures, or maybe some running some of that siding different ways, maybe vertically, to kind of break that up a little bit. That way it doesn't look as uniform. It's a very valid comment.
I'd say have the similar comment on the front fascia, where that goes up sometimes, but then it goes horizontally for a pretty, is there any chance to break?
I think some of that
line?
Greg, I think some of that goes away because you're going to be you're going to be so close to the buildings because of the proximity of the street. And you're not going to get the view that we're looking at here, obviously, because you're going to be 20 feet from the building, you're going to be looking 40 feet in the air.
Mhm.
So your whole perspective is going to be different in real life than what you see on this drawing. And you only get a distant view of this that we're talking about from a couple of different locations. I don't know.
The other question I had was more for the prior on the civil. Is there really only one way in and one way out of the development?
There's multiple ways. There'll be multiple ways in and out of the development. Two right now from North Maple, going into the amenity center, and we could get the site plan up.
And Tim, I didn't know if, sorry, was there planning comments? I mean, have you looked at these for ingress and egress? Because it looks like the second way out, you have to go through a parking lot, and that's really not an entrance or an exit if you're driving through a parking lot to get to the second way out.
For the apartment folk, and there'll be an entrance exit to the north, a future connection, and then phase 2 will also have to the south another.
Well, we're not looking
entrance.
at phase 2 though. I mean, if you get this approved, you're going to build this.
True.
As far as I can see, there's one way in and one way out.
And you're right, and that we were actually talking about that this week. That's one thing we're evaluating right now. What's difficult about our entrance there is kind of the push and pull of this site. Is we've got so many great grand oak trees there that we're trying to navigate. So I was having this conversation earlier this week about that entrance you're referencing there. It feels very tight. One thing we're looking at is just kind of our routing in and around there. Can we take that southern entrance, maybe touch back into the site through what will be phase 2 and hit that point to kind of help with flow? And also if there's a way to route our other entrance, maybe along that building there, 19, to find a way to kind of get multiple connection points in there. The problem with that area, problem and a great thing, is there's several beautiful trees in there, so it kind of creates a natural pinch point. But it is something that we are absolutely evaluating, and we'll absolutely find a way, because not only from a design standpoint does it have to flow correctly, but from a functionality standpoint, we can't have people struggling to get in and out of the property, and also at the restaurant, which we know will be very popular. So definitely something we're evaluating, and something that we'll have as we continue to further develop the grading plans and the routing. We'll certainly have a further developed solution as we go through the process. But no, that's a valid point and something we're evaluating as we go through it.
Staying on that same subject, is DOT telling you can have a right in, right out on the northern side of this project?
So the northern entrance is right in, right out, and it's full access on the.
Because it seems like most people will probably be taking a left to go to the interstate. If you could flip-flop those driveways even, but how many units are we talking total?
So it's 418 right now on phase 1, with an additional 205 or so on phase 2. So it'll be somewhere just north of 600.
So you got 1,200 cars that are going to be trying to get out all about the same time in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably got a 15,000 car a day traffic count on North Maple Street right now, which is going to make it very difficult without a traffic light to get in and out of this place.
And so that we've gotten the traffic study, and I'm sure you guys maybe have seen it too. I
haven't seen it.
It just came. I think it's in review with you guys now. We got a draft of it, and so one thing, we're building a dedicated left in lane on that southern entrance, but it is right in, right out on that top side. So that's, again, part of that discussion is how do we route this properly within the site and outside. But yeah, DOT, we haven't gotten their firm feedback yet. We've gotten the traffic study, and they'll be part of that discussion as we move forward. But the traffic study indicates right now that that's what we're showing there is what they've recommended.
Also, there's a tremendous amount of residual property behind this property, right? And I see one future connection. Was that the only connection plan to the residual property?
That's the only one planned right now. Yes.
Okay. Does that property have another way to get out to North Maple Street?
That property will have an access to old Dairy Road, so we'll have a secondary access. That will not be the main access to the secondary property behind us.
How many acres behind you?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's over 100.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I think it's about
again, their main
127.
access will not be through the site. They will be strongly encouraged through traffic calming measures to go through through their other access point.
I think that's really gonna be more of an issue between y'all and DOT in the town, rather than this board. Although, we need to make the comments, because your access is gonna be very poor,
Yes,
the way
sir.
it's designed right now.
Yes, sir. And again, there's a master plan for this whole area right now, as I'm sure some of you are aware. And obviously, the parcel behind us and that track will continue to be tweaked throughout this. So I don't think anyone's intention is for the main thoroughfare of that site to ever be through ours. That'll be worked out through DOT and Old Dairy Road when that time comes.
Yep.
All right. You got anything else you want to add?
Yeah.
Okay. Had a
Keep
feeling.
moving along. So I handed out to you guys some concepts and some elevations and schematics around our goat and our amenity offering. So again, I apologize for not being on the board, but you can kind of flip through these by hand here. So a lot of the same inspiration that Kevin and his team went through to design this residential elevations and residential buildings are the same sort of discussions we've been having with Oz Architecture. So Oz is our architect who develops these buildings for us, our amenity and restaurant concepts. So they weren't able to be here today, so you're stuck with me, but certainly have had several conversations with those guys and can answer any questions you can. But if not, happy to follow back up with you guys and certainly plan on them being a part of this discussion at final DRB as well. But again, walking through just the packet I gave out, this is the idea is exploring the existing infrastructure and what's the historic nature of the Low Country in Somerville, certainly integrating that into the modern. We try and stay on the cutting edge of these sort of residential communities and how we can amenitize them in a way that services our residents, make it an attractive place to live, but also integrates into the community, provides a great place for folks to come eat, entertain, come socialize, and build community together. So important to blend those things while we're offering that service to the community and our residents. So again, like I said, the design element is really built around the Low Country, what we see in here in Somerville, and you'll see it as in these the massing study on the following page, and then the elevations on the back, that it's really a Charleston single house design. And so if you keep flipping back, you can kind of see the massing study of how we built this building. That it starts off with that single house concept, builds it out into array, scales it into what we need for our goat restaurant, pushes and pulls a bit to kind of provide some depth. And then as you continue back, you'll see the elevations on the four sides of the building. And so as you can see, the larger red brick building is what houses our goat. This whole building in itself will be around 15,000 square feet. We'll have our restaurant, again, full service restaurant and bar. We'll have a wellness center, which will be a very nice top of the market fitness facility for our residents. We'll have a co-working space that will be available for residents and the community alike to come in and utilize the space, conference rooms, meeting rooms, what have you. And you'll also see as part of our goat offering, the restaurant offering, on the second floor, there's a gaming concept. So there'll be arcade games. We'll have darts, that sort of thing, and we'll continue to develop that offering as we get through it, this process. But it's something we've incorporated lately that's been really well received by the communities that we've partnered with on these projects. And so you can see we've got, you know, the precedent pictures throughout here of kind of what drove this design. As you kind of flip through, you'll be able to see the different materials we've used. So punched openings with, you know, plenty of glass to try and bring in some of that beautiful natural light we have here in the Low Country. A lot of good red brick, and really try and focus on building that Charleston single house where you've got the varying elevations, the height and the depth and the different pitches to really emphasize the Low Country. And so again, this is what we have pulled together so far on the outside. Bringing you kind of to the last page, you can see a floor plan of how we lay these out, and really try to utilize the connection points between all of our offerings here, all centered around the goat, which is really a great spot, and I think will be very popular in the community, and offer just a great place for people to come together, and then spill out from there into the patio, where there'll be outdoor games, bocce ball, things like that. And then behind that, as you can see on the earlier drawings, we'll have volleyball courts. We'll have a kind of a flex space that we use for food trucks, outdoor entertainment, stuff like that, and then translating then for our dog park. So a lot of good outdoor area there for our residents and for the surrounding community to enjoy. Any questions for me on the goat and the resident? I mean, the amenity
Questions?
space?
Yes, sir.
If you want to, yeah. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on if you're ready, and I'm going to ask Tim if there are any staff comments on this.
No, I just wanted to highlight that this will have to go to Tree Protection Board for any of the tree removal and tree preservation. Generally speaking, the designs are consistent with Chapter 4, the design guidelines. So really it is coming down to your guys' position, comments, and conditions.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if anybody up here has some comments. I think we do. We'll start with Greg.
Okay, I think the program is great. The elements you've put in here seem to be very much in keeping with what the UDO is trying to achieve and make pedestrian-focused, walkable amenities. And the images you've picked are really very nice. I'm a little uncomfortable with the Charleston single analogy. Charleston single houses were detached.
Right.
They don't touch each other. And the porches always face the same way for a reason.
Right.
So it's hard to determine, is this just a cute thing to do, or, you know, is it really consistent with, you know, having respect for the Charleston single house as a unique American creation and an incredible, clever way to bring British architectural history and adapt it to our climate.
Right.
So I think I'd like it better if it wasn't trying to be a Charleston, either make it consistent with Charleston single, or maybe just the vertical pieces. You say that's kind of Charleston, but the side porch is not really a Charleston single.
Right. Okay.
The other part, and the buildings look good, and I think they have a lot of potential, but the big red one is just kind of, it's big.
Right.
And the other ones, even though they don't look like anything we have here, they do have that sort of verticality and the scale and the natural materials. And one looks kind of like it could be a farmhouse, or two of them do. And then we talk about the shrub. But the red one is just kind of an oddity.
Right.
And does it really fit into the development you're creating? It's tall. Does it need to be that tall?
The reason behind, again, I what I understand in my conversations with Oz is, I mean, the height is really to accommodate the second level of that gaming, that second bar, that whole area. So we like that connectivity between the restaurant down below, and then there's that big patio that comes out, connection point down to the patio and the gaming down back behind. And so really the pitch roof, I think, brings in a lot of that height. So I mean, we can look at that. We like the look of putting some windows up in the eaves to kind of bring in, again, that sort of what we thought was kind of a nice Charlestonian feel there. But if the height is a concern, that's certainly something we can look at.
Yeah, or maybe multiples instead of a single big one.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it's very unusual to have 3 windows in an attic.
Gotcha.
Very, very unusual. If there's precedent for that, let's look at it. But
right.
It just seems like everything else you can kind of say, well, it doesn't really look like a farmhouse, but I can see these elements.
Right.
And then you see the red and, the tall, the 2-story brick skinny piers. It just, again, the other ones I think have a tremendous amount of appeal. Mm-hmm. And it's harder because that one's bigger.
Right.
But it just seems out of place with everything else.
No, I completely understand. And I mean, changing the way the pitches of those roofs work, maybe mix it up.
But you can still get some volume inside.
Yeah.
But maybe rather than one big volume,
exactly.
It's a more interesting, combination of volumes that intersect up there.
Absolutely something we can look at and bring back to you the next stage. Absolutely.
No, I want to become a member if there's a club. But.
We'd be happy to have you.
Guess we'll see what happens. Matt?
I am really uncomfortable, I guess, with the ingress-egress situation, both in the geometry and the volume that's going to allow in there. For example, your northern entrances are right out only. Majority of the people to use that southern exit will be taking a left, so you're creating your own opposing traffic. I think you need more access points. I think you need more full access points to serve this many units.
No, and I agree with you. I think that the access and the routing can definitely be improved, and we're absolutely going to have a long conversations with DOT about where this goes. They're going to drive a lot of that, as you well know, and so sitting down with them and ensuring we follow their standards and integrating their suggestions is going to be crucial. So no, we're absolutely, this is how we this is a way that we typically see this functioning well, but as it has to integrate within, like I said, the traffic we're creating and the existing in place traffic, certainly a conversation with DOT that needs to be had. And we'll, as the design progresses, we'll have that and integrate whatever they suggest.
Bill?
All these comments are very valid, of course, and I think your egress is going to be impossible given the traffic count on North Maple Street.
Right.
I mean, there's certain times my property's impacted by it. I'm impacted favorably because the value is created in my property,
right,
which is out in West Richards,
mm-hmm.
but right around the corner. But there are certain times of the day I don't take North Maple Street.
Yeah.
So coming out of your development is going to be impossible without a light.
Right.
Or you can go to Dairy Road, which is easier, but they don't have a light there. But eventually they'll have a light at Dairy Road, which may take away your ability to get a light here.
Right.
But that's something you got to work out with DOT. Wish you luck.
No, you're exactly right. And
I think it's a beautiful development. It's going to be a fun place for people to live, and it's.
I appreciate that.
It's going to be an asset.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And absolutely, we share your concerns, and we'll be sure we integrate as best we can, and certainly have concerns on traffic and do the best we can to mitigate it.
Okay. Well, I just want to reiterate the bottleneck issue. Architecturally, the residential buildings seem to be really nice. as Greg was saying, maybe break up those rear elevations a little bit. But I think my biggest concern is taking the concept of Charleston single house and tweaking it this way and that way and into a commercial building. And I don't think it's that successful, really. Just mostly because of the massing and the nature of the single house. But so my comments are really kind of geared towards the big red brick building. Then it's very simple, which isn't really the problem. I just think it's a kind of massive and under detailed, and I wouldn't bring up the single house.
we can take it off the next presentation. Absolutely.
Well, it's not the Somerville single house either.
I'm with you.
But anyway, I think some restudy of that would be a pretty good idea.
No, and this is again all great feedback, and we're certainly wanted to get y'all's take on this as well. So no, that's helpful.
So those dormer windows in the gray buildings.
Yes.
Why are they so narrow?
I think it may just be the yeah, they are a little narrow. I think they need another paint on them.
Are they dormers? It's hard to kind of tell.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's something we've looked at too that I think will help. Something we've evaluated just from the window standpoint is putting in some shutters too, and something we're looking at. And I think certainly at those eaves, maybe something that would be in a great well there and give it that kind of width you're talking about there.
Okay.
I like it without the shutters. It's your building. If it looks good.
We can look at it the next step and you can tell us.
They're not real. Like there was a point in time when shutters had a functional purpose.
Right.
The storm was coming or it was cold and you closed the shutters and that was awesome. Now they're just screw through them.
Right.
Why? The reason I love Somerville and has lived here for 22 years is, to me, it's just an honest place.
Right. Right. No, it's great feedback. I agree.
That's just my impression.
Understood.
And the other comment, Tim, these are really helpful to have, but are these part of the
No,
electronics
those
of
were
the-
not received in time to get them into the packet.
Put them all in and send it again, because when we go and compare,
I can forward what they sent over to you. Yeah.
and just so I can attach it into my.
All right. If there isn't any other discussion and no other staff comments, someone would like to make a motion. They're seeking preliminary approval.
I'd recommend preliminary approval based on comments.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a recommendation for preliminary approval based on the comments that we've made and a second. So any other discussion?
Yeah, I hate to keep beating the site, but if we give preliminary approval, how much flexibility does that give us on the site design?
I don't know. Tim?
They still have to come back for final, and there can still be some tweaks between here and there. Obviously, they're working with the TIA, DOT, and the town to address those issues. So as they come forward and when they come back for final, there may be some adjustments to that to reflect the concerns that were brought up.
Well, is it reasonable to think final would not happen until there was some clarity with SCDOT and the town? Because I'd hate to have you come in and say, well, it looks great, but we still have the road issue. It'd be nice to get everything together and say, okay, maybe SCDOT hasn't signed everything, but at least conceptually they're on board.
I would assume that they're not coming back in August right away. It's going to be kind of tough to address a development of this size with the number of comments that they have, the architecture across all that many buildings. So they might have a little bit of time between July and when they come back potentially to address those specifically. But I think that they're at a level that is appropriate. If that helps.
Okay. Needless to say, if nothing changes on the ingress and egress, in spite of the concerns said, I'm not sure that preliminary approval is going to guarantee a final approval of that particular thing.
Understood, and we recognize that, and assure you we will lengthen those conversations and take that very seriously and be sure to incorporate that before we get back in front of you.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
Congrats. Second item will be, wow, loud. 315 North Magnolia.
You might need to. If you're going to talk, just sign in. Yeah, if you're going to talk.
Just make sure you sign in.
Thank you. So this is a much less complex project, I'm sure. Pretty simple. So we're just proposing an arbor on the property line, or just inside of the property line on North Magnolia Street and 3rd. And the purpose is purely beautification. We're trying to create just a garden feeling inside the property. And I don't know if anyone has driven by lately, but we've been really enhancing the property in that corner and trying to make it really a destination, something to see. And the idea of the arbor is to create a place, somewhere special to enter into, and creating just an area that is enclosed and not so much on the street. And all the third is getting quite busy these days, and that's great. It's good for business coming in. It's good for people, commuting and the things that they need to do. But wouldn't it be nice if, as you're passing past 3rd there, that you get to view something just a little enhanced, something beautiful, ask a question, ooh, what's going on inside there? So that was really the purpose and our desire to do that. It's a fairly simple project. And so that's that. As far as the cooler goes, it says, I think in the notes that we submitted, you can't see it from the street on either side. And I think that's a good spot for it. It's sheltered by the wind as well. For us, that works, and some of the weather that we get. So that's really it.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Is this for final,
Yes.
preliminary and final? I did get the package and look through it, but I can't remember what the arbor is made out of.
It's made out of steel.
And that's something you're buying from like a company, or are you making it
It'll be
yourself?
fabricated on site.
So from scratch, it's not like a kit. You're actually,
I'm sorry?
it's not something that's like pre-made and pre-engineered.
No, it'll be built on site
Okay.
to specification and
Custom design.
Custom design.
custom design, yes. And as far as, I was worried about visibility, so we tried to move it back from that tree so that the corner still has plenty of access.
Mhm.
I think we've done that. We'd be open to, input on that, but I think it's set back far enough. When you get to that stop sign, just under that big tree there, you can see well enough to turn coming in and out.
And you're painting it
It'll be black.
black.
The sketch there is fairly accurate. It's black and white, but the fountain there is black. The trim in the house is black.
Mhm.
It's Charleston green, actually. And,
Black.
well, and the home, it's maintaining its integrity. It's one of those, I went down to the Dorchester Museum here, and they let me know that the homes across the street where the ice house is, I can't remember that street. Well, it's Magnolia. Those 3 homes that are there, it's by the same builder as our house. So we wanted to keep it as intact as possible. In fact, from the exterior, the home won't have any real modifications at all. The only reason you'll know it's a restaurant, hopefully by word of mouth, and a small signage in the future that we haven't really addressed. But I would just think of just like a swinging sign off the house, and that's it. Just maintaining more of a classic look, keeping the historical integrity.
Very good. Any other comments or questions?
I think it's going to look nice. It's all on-street parking too. You don't have any on-site parking.
We have a handicap
I see the
access parking in the front,
see
and
the handicap,
that's
but
it. So we were able to keep the land,
the yard-
beautified, if you will. And we
yard is the
actually
yard.
have an agreement with the orthodontic office across the street for after-hours parking. So that's nice. They were
Well,
really
I've seen all the work you've been doing. I was curious about it. It looks nice.
yes.
Looks good.
It's coming along. It's coming along. Actually, now we're making good traction. We're working with the Simmons Group for our construction, and it's coming. And Chris Constantine for the engineering, and we're making tracks. It's taken a while. So.
Any other comments? Need a motion, please?
I'll make a motion for preliminary and final approval.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Next order of business is Springview Townhomes. Tim, if you would just note that Matt Halter's had to leave. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Would you be willing to jump forward to a site plan?
Let me digress for 1 second. Tim, could you do you have any staff comments first?
Tree removal permit and tree protection board approval is still required. The landscape plan actually meets requirements. The photometric plan meets requirements. The exterior finishes include the Nichiha fiber cement siding and trim, vinyl windows, architectural shingles, thin brick applied to the raised foundation. The site plan was generally approved by the board at the prior meeting, and no major changes have been made. The colors were advised to be restudied. Bases and capitals have been added to the columns on the front of the building per request of the board previously. All done.
All right. Well, Springfield Townhomes, it's 24 townhomes broken into 3 different buildings. Is it okay if we move to a site plan? Great. Currently, it is a relatively wooded lot. It's surrounded on really 3 sides by a large kind of retention draining area. And we will essentially be adding some additional drainage and retention in the center of the site. So the townhomes themselves, you want to go forward. Another. It's a good site plan. In the center there, you enter into the property. There is the parking kind of around that central core area, which is a drainage easement, but it's also more of a bioswale. It'll be fully planted with trees and various other plantings. Most of the townhomes themselves all have front porches that are a good depth to focus in on that planted feature. Sidewalks circulate around the entire development from the actually the kind of the dog park and mail area down to the dumpsters and kind of circling around. They hit every single unit. It is a project going through state housing review as well. So there are multiple ADA accessible units to kind of complete that kind of together community that's more equitable for everyone involved. Want to go forward a little bit maybe for one of the elevations? Obviously, site planning, drainage, lighting, and whatnot. This is probably a good one. So each unit, we tried to kind of group them together so that the units are relatively small. So they kind of group together into four maybe the larger looking units. Each one has a nice front porch with their own steps that come out to the front. The second story of the units kind of come out over the porch, allowing to get some depth in the various elevations. On the rear as well, the rear exterior doors are also sunken in, so that second story also overhangs, giving it some shade and allowing the elevations to be less flat, less square as a box. Detailing of trim to kind of break up the individual units and the corners as well. Some of the comments from previous boards, we shrunk the size of some of the attic venting to make sure they weren't quite as large and prominent in the design. We also enlarged columns, a little thicker, a little more robust to help support that overhang and that porch. And then obviously adding bases and capitals to all the columns as well, as they would be detailed on site. You flip over mode of the rendering. There were some comments obviously about the colors, so we tried to mute them out. So while we still want to create, a bright, cheery atmosphere, pastel colors of yellow, green, a little bit of blue, we muted them down so they're not nearly as bright. They're much more kind of toned and subdued, but still cheery. I think that's a good mix. Some of the plan changes, they're really the same from our last review. We had to readjust some of the ramps and accessibility features, but overall, that was the only true change to the actual plans of the units. They're all the same as last time.
Tim, could you go back to the site plan or planting plan, please? Planting plans preferred.
That one's right there, yeah.
I noticed in the rendering that there were you did not have some trees and some end islands.
Correct. Some of the existing grand trees didn't quite make it into the rendering, but there are some good substantial trees, especially near the bottom of the property. And then the actual drainage area goes down and is there are some palms as well as shade trees that generally match the ODU requirement for tree cover, 60 feet essentially to cover the entire parking lot. You can kind of see the circle, I think, very lightly dotted in there of the size of the trees that will be in there.
All right, thank you.
How visible are the backs?
The rear of the one unit would be somewhat visible. Obviously, so looking at the plan, the unit on the top, those rears will be somewhat visible. You can kind of see there is a building relatively close to it, so only the front corner would be visible from the street. The rest would be farther back. The unit on the left-hand side backs up to essentially a wooded area that has townhomes as well on the other side of it. And then the units on the right-hand side backs to a drainage area that's also pretty heavily wooded.
The reason I'm asking is the front, I think, is very nice, and the side facing the courtyard. But it's hard to know, the back is extremely simplified, especially the roof line. And, again, since I'm not familiar with the site, is that going to be, what are the neighbors going to say?
Sure.
Are they going to think, oh, that looks pretty nice, or are they going to think they're looking at the backside of
Hopefully, we added some detailing, to break up a huge long run. Obviously, DG house siding has only an 8-foot length, really, essentially. So every 8 feet, you're not going to get long runs of siding broken up with trim.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the roof, because I'm not sure they're gonna see the walls, but I think they will see the roof.
Sure.
And that's what, I don't know if you have those elevations, the front is really, it's nice. Got a lot of pediments and a lot of columns, and
The
there's
unit
no
on
big
the
chunks of roof.
The unit on the top right-hand corner, which I would think is probably the most visible one, as you said, towards the back, that's the one that actually has 2 levels. So if you look on the right-hand side, you can see that's kind of there's a single-story level with its roof, and then it articulates up to a larger second-story roof. That's the one that is probably the most prominent on the site. So as you come in, you're going to see an articulated roof versus the other ones that are maybe more flat back.
Does that make you nervous?
I know.
Is there a rendering of the back?
I don't believe I didn't bring it back now.
Okay.
Kind of see, at least from a 3-dimensional standpoint.
Mhm. Yeah,
Each section
it's a lot
be
of,
broken
it's a
up.
lot of roof, and it's just a question of can you see it or not.
Let's see, you kind of broke up the pediment. Some trim on the front there. I don't even know that that's particularly necessary as it is. But I mean, it's not bad. It's just kind of creates 2 gables sort of within the overall gable. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody.
Well, we talked about that. Sorry. Are you talking about the vents in the attic?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that last time.
Oh, I'm talking about the trim, the way the trim is
Diagonally?
diagonally, yeah.
Upside down truss?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if that horizontal is necessary in the diamond shape. I'm not sure that helps, but.
I noticed it too, actually, and to me, it kind of does take away from it a little bit. It's just a little minor detail, but
yeah.
Oddly enough, the units aren't 100% symmetrical, so the ability to put like 1 or 2 vents next to each other in the middle, not really able to do that. Just the way they're actually designed. So the one reason they're split is because they're not exactly 100% in the center, the way the firewall kind of cuts it.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to split them. It was really just more a question of
Triangle.
Is the trim, and again, that's not going to hold up a final approval, but
correct.
It is something maybe you want to, if it's just a piece of whatever trim.
Be removed.
My only other question was in the black and white drawing, the window heads, the second floor window head trim looks to be proud of the horizontal band. In the rendering, it looked like they were flush. Which is it? I don't necessarily believe that they should be flush. You don't want a solid, but is the window head coming out the trim an inch or 2 out from the horizontal band, or
it will be a little bit proud, and it'll have essentially metal flashing, cat flashing on it, so it will stick out a little bit. You know, about a ½ inch.
Tim, can we go to the rendering?
I think it just kind of the sun blurred it out maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I think just making sure that there is, if you use flashing, then that'll help that. Just trying to create some definition there so it doesn't all just kind of blend together. That's all I got.
The handrails and guardrails on the porches, that's metal, I take it?
Yes, so everything on the exterior has to be either vinyl or metal. We can't use any wood on the exterior of the buildings. So would be a black aluminum.
So everything has to be vinyl or metal?
Well, they can't be wood, so the siding is cementitious.
So the siding is going to be cementitious, not vinyl?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
But there will be some
So
slight
you're
fencing.
stuck, so
Yeah,
you're stuck with,
PVC.
yeah. Maybe it'd look better if it was white instead of black. I don't know what y'all think.
It'll be more traditional. Sometimes Well,
Mm.
sometimes it would have the potential of making the verticals less pronounced.
Yeah,
So you could look at that and see.
yeah,
You know, a lot of times there's a black, black top rail and the pickets are white.
it could be,
Yeah.
could be.
Might be
Just something to
harder in
look
metal.
at, probably.
Mhm. But I agree, those things can be, the metal railings can be really nice, or they can be really cheap. And you look at them, you can tell they're just cheap. And it's obviously, I don't know what product you've actually picked out.
Well, you can tell them what product to pick out
Well,
or strongly suggest.
yeah, I mean, you just have to look around. And what happens is the connections between the posts and the horizontal and how it's mounted to the building. And if it's mounted into the floor, if it's really clear spanning the way you're showing it. Those are all the types of things that happen. And if some of the less expensive ones, because it's probably kids and bikes and all that other, they're going to get pushed around and dented, and you just want to make sure you have something that's going to be sturdy enough to hold up to the demands.
We were bracing them. The columns themselves are only like 6.5 feet, so they're not a particularly
It's not a big span.
wide span. And part of that requirement of no wood on the exterior, everything has to be metal or cementitious, or is about durability. They really make sure everything is very durable. So the idea is that all surfaces are hard and can last and stay nice. No rotting, no deferred maintenance, so to speak.
All right, well, I think it looks good. It's a nice project. Be a nice place for people to live. Nice courtyard, nice landscaping, nice facades. Hopefully they're happy there.
All right, if that is the case, then is there a motion for final approval?
I'll motion for final.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All righty, thank you. Good luck. Next item is Culvers. They are requesting preliminary approval. Tim, while they're signing in, could you highlight the staff comments, please?
Yes, the request for preliminary approval, the site has been cleared and there are no significant trees in the property. Proposed parking exceeds the requirement. A parking justification letter has been submitted and staff is evaluating the request. The applicant is showing the extra parking constructed properly with pervious pavers. No exception to the 30-foot landscape buffer is being requested at this time. A photometric plan has been provided, but the average foot candles for the site has not been provided. That was just not highlighted on the plan. The building is generally consistent with the design guidelines. Materials include thin brick, horizontal fiber cement siding, ephes, louvered awnings, and standing seam metal roofing. The signage plan includes a manual reader board, which must be no more than 25% of the permitted 50 square foot allotted signage and must be approved by the design review board.
All right, if you would state your name, your role in the project, and the floor is yours.
Sure. Marion Sutherland, civil engineer. And Tim, can we flip to a site plan? Couple more.
One more?
Yes, please. So when we were here for conceptual, we were encroaching into that 30-foot buffer in the back, and I will say that we've reduced parking, worked that out with the client to reduce some parking, so we're no longer encroaching into that buffer in the back, and any extra parking is pervious pavers Other than that, site changes from conceptual would be focused on the patio area in the front where we made some changes, but we also were able to incorporate the front parking buffer of 8 feet, and so meet all landscaping buffer requirements and pretty straightforward site plan.
You want me to move on to the building? All right, Wendy Martin, architect, and so if we can stop at that floor plan, please. There we go. So the plan of the building itself, we haven't changed anything interior. And on the exterior, we deepened the porches as was recommended at conceptual review. So you'll see wider coverage with those. They occur plan north and plan south as we're looking at it here. We also emphasize the main entry, which is center on plan south as we're seeing it here. And you might remember from last time we had a covered patio that formerly was off to the side, and as Marianne indicated, we relocated that, put it central or on the front facade, which is left as we're looking at it here, plan west, and situated it to follow the angle of the patio area there, which allowed us to really kind of open up the walkway to the door that is on that facade. It also then kind of naturally adjoined the main entry sidewalk that we see along the main entry facade, which is south as we're looking at it here, but in reality, I believe it's north. And then what is the next drawing the photometric?
Yep.
So I did get the information. The average foot candles across the site is 1.8. So apologize for that not being on there, but that is that data point there. And those are the light fixture cuts. And this is all updated from the sign vendor. And here are the revised renderings, 2D format as we see here, and then the next sheet should be the 3D views that we see. Changes that we've done from last time. There was comment, the board appreciated the lack of blank facades, but felt that there was too much going on. So we reduced that, the piers, pilasters, the term we use for them, we dropped the height of those. Still there to provide accent and definition along the facade, but we did drop those down. As you can see, we increased the depth of the porch. Another comment was to emphasize the main entry a little bit more, and as I mentioned when we were looking at the plan view, we have done that here as well with gable over that roof area and extending it out a bit beyond the porch roof. And we can also see in these views the patio canopy, the patio roof, you know, standing in front of the building, and then also kind of opening up for those approaching on the path from the east, or if you are in the restaurant or in on the patio there, creating a natural walkway and path, if you will, from that space to the building or back to the parking lot. We also simplified the columns that we see that support the porch roof, as well as the patio canopy. And we also altered the colors of the roof edge metal. So there was a desire to not have as much blue, so we have toned that down, and all around the building we have the roof edge metal of the midnight bronze, and we have also repeated that element on the porch roofs and the patio canopy roof, and reduced the blue element to just be fascia board underneath that, but allowing that dark midnight bronze color to really be the bold stroke above that. I think that is essentially what we did to change between now and then. There used to be brackets around the upper parapet as well. We have eliminated those again with the intent to go a little bit more simplistic, as was requested. We did also bring a sample board of what we're proposing. If you'd like, I can bring that up to see.
I noticed there's a freestanding canopy in the front, correct? So tell me again, what is the reasoning for the positioning, the angle? It doesn't match the building, it matches the back curb. It looks like, what's the rationale there?
Correct. And it's not really the back curb. It is on the frontage. So it's on the approach as a vehicle would enter the site. And when we situated it to align with that angle, then it helped us open up a walkway. If you are coming from the sidewalk into the building, or if you're similarly exiting the building at that doorway, coming out, it gives us a natural path, and made more sense really to kind of situate it that way. If it is aligned and straight with the building, we're not really able to site it symmetrically due to what's happening with the staff and the process of the food delivery. And in a building like this, I think that in that orientation, it would need to be aligned or it would need to be symmetrical across the front of the building, and it wasn't working. And when we angled it this way, like I said, it opened things up on that northeast facade view on the bottom right corner of the sheet there. You can kind of shows how it opened up that walkway in between the patio canopy and the building, to help emphasize that entry point, and lead up to it, which I believe was a comment from last month as well.
So the purpose of that awning, is it for staff to deliver food to parked vehicles?
It's patio, so
It's
there would
just
be dining under there.
customers go in, get it, come back out. I think one of the things we talked about was just wrapping that porch all the way around the front instead of having a standalone. I think we said that on this one, but it sounds like what you're saying is you studied that and it didn't work? Or did I get that wrong?
I don't recall that actually being the comment to wrap it around the front. So we were.
I liked the prior location, the patio, much better. It seemed to make much more sense. So whether you walked by it or walked under it to get into the building, but to walk up to the building with some cover would be nice. And then to be able to sort of assess the patio situation and say, well, that looks like a good place to eat. Let's just get it and come back out. Whereas where it is now, it's not only fronting a major street, a lot of traffic. So I'm not sure, it's not that different back on where it was originally, but I think it's further away from the street, which is probably good. And generally, things like this in front of the building, I don't think are really helping. It seems like an odd place to put a canopy.
It does provide, as you're going, driving by on the road, it does provide the visual that, hey, there's, outdoor seating available there.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall there was some comment last time that off to the side, it didn't make sense. And
Oh, I didn't remember that. That was one of my favorite parts about the original, was how nice that canopy looked to sort of on the side of the building. So you had the building and this thing on the side. And now it seems like, it just seems odd. It might be okay, but it just seems odd. And I don't remember suggesting to move it. And if we did, you know, Chris thought we told you to wrap the porch. I thought we told you the patio was in a good spot.
I think
So I don't know what we told you.
the deal with it is that it's gotten so close to the building that it practically is a porch to the building. It's just not attached. If it were, I think the part of it is just so solid, and it's right there at the front, and so it almost detracts from the building. I'd actually think that it as a porch connected would make more sense because it is so close. And it would be a little bit more characteristic of Somerville. I know it would get big, but when you get it, you got
This
something.
seems oddly placed. I know you hate when people pull out Google, but I'm looking at one in Palm Coast and Flagler. You're welcome to come look at it. But it's like a larger porch element that is attached to the building. That just seems to make more sense rather than having a pretty substantial structure in front of the building or to the side. Because before this one, it just seems like it's just kind of another little part is placed there rather than, it just doesn't really seem cohesive or work with the building. So I guess that's why I'm leaning towards the porch element, and we're having it attached. It seems like that works. And the other thing with it being attached is, I mean, it wasn't supposed to rain today, right? But that was a heck of a rain we got. And you can go from the restaurant to, the outdoor seating without getting rained on. Just seems like the right approach, and it seems like it would fit in the space you have.
Okay, so the options are put it back where it was or integrate it into the building as one porch. Pick which one.
Yeah, and the other part of that is the architectural detailing on this is, there's just more to it. It looks a little more sophisticated on this one. Yeah.
Dentals.
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 Are they rafter tails or are they dentals?
You couldn't tell.
I don't know.
you're talking about detailing of the porch or the building on that one?
Porch.
Porch.
Hitting pause on that just for a second. I like what you did with the building. You simplified the forms, and it's a lot cleaner to me. It makes a lot more sense. When you go simple, you do tendency to give up detail, but in reference to the form, I appreciate what you did there. I think that I know there's a lot of attention on a little outdoor seating instead of the building, but so I wanted to at least say that. I do appreciate what you've done there. But I'm thinking that just a study of the porch, a porch being on the front instead of a separate thing. So it's all integrated together. And so ordinarily you'd see something like this maybe added. We've even seen that in Somerville since COVID, where people add outdoor seating out front. You have an opportunity at this point to integrate it into the design and actually make it more like Somerville. So that's where I would come from.
Well, I agree with Chris. We appreciate you going back and taking our comments into mind and coming back. And I agree you did address them. The concerns I have are the images in the upper left. the colors of those are kind of aggressive, whereas the colors in the bottom view are very nice and subtle. And which are we going to get?
Well, some of that is coming from the rendering
Yeah.
program, so.
So is this the cobblestone? Which is the main?
The cobblestone, what we see there, that is the site.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yep. All right, and then I think those, I don't know what you call those piers, towers. They still seem a little tall to me.
So the front right view, for example, those two are the tallest.
Yeah.
They're just over 23 feet. Drive-through side, and then on the rear of the building are lower, not quite 20 feet.
Yeah, in some of the views, they just seem a little tall. And then the, Chris Garbus mentioned the Somerville aspect. The house I grew up in was like the New England version of Somerville. And our porch had similar columns, and they ran past the, I don't know what you call it, the lintel, the horizontal. Like you have a continuous band of blue. And if you looked at running the color of the columns all the way up to the soffit and just doing the blue between the columns, because it just seems like, I know you want blue, I know the brand is blue, I understand all that. It's just, that's a lot of continuous blue versus if you could let the verticals run through it. It'd be interesting to look and see if that makes it more.
It kind of reads as a sign band.
More better.
I would say I'd take the blue out altogether. They along the porch roof. I mean, typically, I can't think of building around here at all that would have a different color at the top of the columns. That should be a soffit color.
Same color as the columns, more or less?
Yeah. Again, looking at this, that looks really good. You know, I'm sure they pushed back and there was a process to get to this, but yeah. You know, it's got, maybe that's a little bit taller, I can't tell. But it's got also brick column bases instead of hardy or wood or whatever this is. And it's just a little bit more elegant and well detailed. So this is the level of detail I would be looking for.
Well, what they did on that, they used the blue on the roof, which I think we told them not to do because the blue on the roof is, it's not bad in this view because you can't see it.
Right.
But
yeah, well, they have blue awnings.
Roof,
There's still blue there.
Yeah, well.
And then another question I have is, do you have any neon wrapping it or LED bars or any kind of light band that goes all the way around? Because it kind of reads like there might be, because of that top piece, it's black and then it's kind of this bronze and black. I just want to make sure it's not any kind of, it's not a light
we are
band.
not showing that. Can you please go back to the 2D views? Yes, that is, we are not showing that.
Yeah, the rendering has a line that goes through there that maybe it's just an error in the rendering or something, but.
So you don't want that to be neon?
Correct.
Okay. That's reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah, we are not showing that. So we were not intending that to be included.
Oh, and talking about staying southern, you see where it says building address? Like where anybody could driving by see it, that's really not southern. Like you're not supposed to be able to find addresses on any of our buildings. So you want to put it there, but make it so nobody could possibly see it.
Not a lot of speed limit signs down here.
So, and that, it doesn't need to be that prominent. I think it'd be much lower on the building.
Well, and that is there, you know, typically the fire department tells where that's supposed to go.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it's not there, I think it'll be fine.
We need to, I hear you on the parapet, but we need to make sure that no mechanical equipment is seen from the parking lot, from the road. You're not driving up to the building, you see all these mechanical units.
Correct, the parapets.
Correct. So we need to see a little section or something that
Well,
shows
she's
that.
got a dash line on the elevation representing the roof or roof.
Doesn't really show the mechanical equipment though.
Yeah, it's like 4.5 feet on the low side of the parapet, or 3.5 feet.
We can certainly do that. We have a building section there. Otherwise, we wanted it, but it.
Just for that purpose, really.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other comments or any questions on your behalf? Bill?
I will point out, just for the sake of pointing it out, we did switch on the signage from the digital reader to the manual.
Tim, could you go to the signage?
Not that one, it makes me hungry. Skip that.
The reader board. Looks like nothing, all that reader board is really
No, it's the old school variety.
hand letters.
Someone goes out there and puts the letters up.
That would look okay to me. I don't know about y'all, but it's reader board.
This case, I think it's fine, but I think in the civil packet, it showed a different sign, didn't it, for a freestanding sign? Or am I thinking of the previous one? That's the sign, I'm fine with it. Yep.
All right, so this was for final approval? Preliminary. Awesome.
All right.
We could make it final.
If it's gotten this much better from your first visit to this one, it'll be even better next time.
No. Yeah, I want to see that awning.
That's what I'm saying. If they come back,
Yeah.
it should be even better.
Right.
If they made this much progress since last time,
Right.
this much progress to the next one, it'll be a fantastic project.
All right, is there a, someone like to make a motion?
Preliminary approval. Comments noted.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Comments including study of the porch, front porch,
Porch location and
right?
details.
Yes. Don't change the form, 'cause that worked out great, but maybe some detailing of the
Blue banding.
blue banding, yeah. But other than that, I think it's pretty cool.
Anything else?
I think that'll do.
All right, all those in favor of,
I'll second that.
you seconded
Yeah.
it? Right, that's right, okay. All those in favor of preliminary approval with conditions, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All righty, thank you. Next applicant is for the Harbor Freight Tools at Collins Square. Make sure you sign in and state your role in the project, please.
Hey, my name is Holden Brinson. I work with Jordan Trotter Commercial Real Estate, who is the developer for this project. We develop Harbor Freight tools across the Southeast.
Tim, could you go a brief review on staff comments? Sorry.
Yeah, following your staff's comments, the required setback is a 10-foot minimum, not a 30-foot as indicated on the plan. The front buffer requirement is not the requirement anymore. A landscape plan is required. Obviously, this is at that level where we should have had one. Sorry. There's a 5-foot landscaping area required along the side of the building facing East 5th North Street. The parking lot is required to have an 8-foot perimeter border around all sides. Landscape islands are required, planted with canopy trees and showing a 60-foot radius. With all parking spaces to be within that radius. There should be a pedestrian connection to both public rights-of-way, both public right-of-way and the surrounding Collins Square Shopping Center. 62 parking spaces are proposed, and that is exactly 200% of the minimum parking requirement, meaning they don't need to do any pervious. Bicycle parking is required. A minimum of 6 bicycle parking spaces must be provided. Photometric plan, engineering plans, and signage plans have not been submitted at this time. The architecture of the building is generally consistent with the design guidelines. There are multiple colors, and the majority of the facade is proposed to be constructed of a brick veneer. There are standing seam metal awnings over the main entrance and window bays. Standard storefront window systems. EFIS accents are less than the maximum permitted. The orientation of the building does not face the frontage line. The front facade does not meet the 50% transparency requirement. The rear facade, which is visible from East 5th North Street, will need adequate screening to shield the view of the right-of-way. Additionally, the rooftop mechanical units will need to be screened from view. And one of the sections I cited, I don't know exactly right off the top of my head what it addresses. Sorry. But this is the site. And then I can turn that on over to the applicant to address the rest.
Yeah, so this is in the Collins Square development there with Palmetto State Armory next to the Harley Davidson dealership store. So the way we've laid out the site is to keep the visibility into the center open and to make our building kind of fall in line with that natural line. If you go back one, try to keep our building face in line with that and have our parking out front, which is also why we don't have the building facing towards East 5th North Street. So the majority of the site layout questions we have already addressed, and some of them we were actually set back too far from the street, and so we've addressed those. For site connectivity, we can extend our front sidewalk to the sidewalk on the right-of-way on East 5th Street, and then stripe a crosswalk or something there to the Harley Davidson dealership. And then the other parking lot perimeter building setbacks and other items, we can fall within those.
You're saying you've addressed all those comments on a revised site plan?
Yes, but we received those comments back today or yesterday, so.
Well, if it was yesterday.
Yeah, well, I can give you all a copy of this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, I have a question really before we jump too deep into this is, I'm a little familiar with the site over the years, and my understanding is this site sits in a floodway.
A portion of the far west side does. The way the layout that I've just handed you, you'll see the red line, the dashed red line that runs and barely touches the curve of our delivery area. The floodway goes from there back west towards the creek there.
Is that the red line?
Right here.
See where the red line is?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry on the paper copy.
Yeah.
So you're gonna-
So you rotated the store 90 degrees then, so the back wall of the building is now facing the canal.
Yes, sir, and it was in the initial one as well. So our store will be facing the Sphinx gas station. Sphinx.
And do you have architecture as well?
We have got some building elevations that we have started. So we have used the architectural features of the rest of the center there to come up with the window layout, bump up in the middle with the brick. Harbor Freight would like to use their trademark colors on the building, and so we've tried to blend those as best as possible. But we created the base architectural plans based off of the other elevations of that center.
Vertically too, are the other buildings in that center the same height?
Yes, I believe so.
Do you have, is this the only elevation you have?
We've got a side elevation on the next page.
So the goal is really to repeat the elements of the buildings that are already out there.
Yes.
Can we go back to that area?
Yeah. So that premise is kind of assuming that what's
Sure.
out there is good, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So it's like, okay.
I believe the center was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think as long as the parapet or the cornice aligns, that's really important because it's so horizontal. I don't think you want to go up or down from that. The colors, I think, are a little, that's a change. Sorry. We done? I'm sorry. I'm going to wait till you're done.
No, wait.
First of all, I love Harbor Freight. I'm thrilled they're coming here. It's a great store. And-
Fortunately, we get that a lot in planning offices. So
Yeah,
we like
but I can't give you any special favor just because I think it's a great store. But I think the height is really important. That corner has gotten better through time, but it's always been kind of, it's never been like a upscale image. There's always been something funny about it. I don't know if it's because it's low or what, but this might help anchor it a little bit. And the corporate colors, like the prior applicant, that can be a challenge.
Sure.
And I think there's a Harbor Freight, the one I go to is Montague and Dorchester, I think. And that shopping center, you can do whatever you want there. Nobody really cares. It's just kind of, whereas here, I think we all want to see this corner do better. Again, it's gotten better.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that this doesn't become like, there's that balance of, no, we don't want you to match what's there, but we don't want it to be like a sign advertising, all
It's
these
a little
corporate colors. And that's my concern with what I was looking at. It just seems like, I'm not sure I understand the architect's intent with the massing and color selection and the taller ends. I understand the focus in the middle, because that's where you want people to go. Sure. That makes sense. But the rest of it, I'm just not sure what we're trying to do in terms of, provide a
so I
good
guess
anchor to that corner of the site.
color aside, we've tried to match the facade as the Harley Davidson and the dental practice that's in that center all the way around to the Palmetto State Armory. And so our thought is our front wall will line up with theirs. And again, to your point, whether you like it or not, it's a different question, but to make it all blend and look as one center. Part of that is just aesthetic, but also we're purchasing the property from the shopping center owner. And so he's got some say in what he wants out in front of his center. And so we're trying to appease both parties, I guess.
Sure, but so you can see in the plan, you're kind of bringing the corners out. But
I think it's just our front door that actually will
are you looking at the
bump
same
out.
thing
If
I am?
you'll go to the
See the
side
floor
view,
plan up there? Yeah.
the others will stay
here,
flat.
where it projects out in the corner, and there's nothing, there's no reason, like there's nothing there it's not a door, it's not a special showcase area, it's just the same as the rest of the building, and it seems odd that you bring it out and change all the colors when what's behind there is just the same store as on the other. The entrance makes sense. I'm not sure those corners really make sense.
Okay. We can certainly
that prominent.
look into that and see if we can come up with a scheme that.
And the red bays, I don't know. I mean, we want to be screening that side, I think. Is red helping or hurting that effort?
If you're going to screen it.
I'm sorry?
If you're going to screen it with trees and that, I don't know that it being red is helpful anyway.
Yeah, what's the red do?
The red definitely jumps out at you, but I think one of the things is like this design is kind of falling victim to its rendering. It's very bright, and the red is really bright.
Yeah,
the blue, and it's just not.
Both colors in person are much more muted. It's just the.
You don't see a lot of red stucco around.
Sure.
I think the biggest problem is the rear elevation because you're going to see all the equipment when you're coming down Highway 78.
Yeah, that was one of the items that was brought up in the staff comments, and
you're going to need to make that rear look as good as the front.
Sure.
And it's going to need a parapet wall to screen the equipment on the roof, I think.
Yeah.
We can see downspouts. That'll be okay.
Okay.
This needs the four sides of the building need to look equally as good to me. Arguably the Truckwell one, maybe not, but you need to not see the mechanical equipment. Tim, could you go back to, there. Yes, sir. Can you walk us through what the materials are? What's like, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so the majority of it will be brick, veneer. The red brick will be some form of a red brick, but the blue and gray would be painted brick. The ephes would then be painted as well.
Where is the ephes? Around just
the
Harbor
two,
Freight and the red, or the red's brick. So what is this dark? That's brick. Okay.
We could look into trying to find a true silver brick. I'm not entirely sure.
I think the massing is actually not that bad, but I think that the shopping center was built, I don't know, in the 70s or something, and it was kind of a blight in this community for many, many years, right? And then they went in and cleaned up the brick a little bit and painted the brick, and it was kind of like making something better than it was, but it's still not great to me. And I really don't want to see more not great, I think the mask, like I said, the mask's not bad. I think it needs a little bit more detailing. It's a little plain. I think I'd rather see brick that is a true Somerville brick instead of kind of that outlier. And to me, what a true Somerville brick is kind of what Main Street is. It's kind of more of a brown.
Okay.
So it looks more like a building that was repurposed it was built in the 30s or something. And I think with this being Harbor Freight, there's kind of this opportunity to do that, even if it looks like it has roll-up garage doors or something. But I think it just needs more, and I hate to be kind of Disney about it, but more kind of period correct elements as far as how the windows work and the size of the mullions and how the doors work and all that. And I think for this, it may be too many colors. And I think you can copy the existing building with massing, but not in materials.
So it's more of a materials and color issue than a
Right. Probably,
layout.
yeah, probably brick detailing when it comes to it, and you know how the relief or the corbelling of the brick and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Massing, I think, is close. These guys know. These guys know that better
Well,
than me.
again, you know, if you're going to do something on the corners, that's fine, but you should return it so it's a thing and not just a plane.
Would y'all be more comfortable with just a true brick building, or using that Somerville brown brick and then having some brick detailing similar to what we've got here?
Yes.
Probably so, yeah. Site planning wise, I think I'm not a fan of the site plan,
Sure.
to be honest. And the reasons I'm not are typically we want to have landscaping between the parking lot and the building, you know, some foundation planting. And that would need to be on probably 3 sides. The truck bay is a little bit different, of course. You know, I don't want to sit at that intersection, and this is what we've been saying for 20 years, is we don't want to see a sea of asphalt, right? So we don't want to be up on 78 and look down and all you see is parking. So I think what we've been asking people to do is a low brick wall that kind of screens that parking lot. It's got landscaping in front of it. Great examples of that are Savannah Highway in Charleston. They've done that several locations. I've seen it in Mount Pleasant. We have it here on Main Street. One of the new banks, I think it might be a Synovus. So you kind of have a little bit more flexibility in the site plan if you can't see it, right?
Sure.
So
I think we've got some easements that run along that boundary along East Fifth Street, so I'm not sure that we could build anything there.
we might have to take out a row of parking. So that'd be 4 parking spaces. You might have to shift all that down so you can fit it in there.
Okay.
Right? Because you're 200% over already. You know, so by code, you got a lot more than you need. And the other thing that's a challenge, I don't have the solution for this, is the parking is, if I'm carrying a load of, you know, heavy objects or whatever from the store, and I'm parked 3 bays over, I've got to walk between cars to get there. So that's a challenge, you know? So I'm gonna either have to walk between cars and pick some people off probably, or, you know, walk around, and most people are not gonna walk around. I think need to probably study the orientation of the parking lot. It might need to rotate 90 degrees, which is, I know it's hard to access that in, but that's kind of a operational issue. I think you need to take a look
we can
at.
definitely look into that.
And that's what we typically see, you know, when you look at pedestrian safety, we're typically rotating so that your drive aisle aligns with the building entrance, rather than, as Chris said, cutting through the parking spaces. If you go back to the site plan, can we see if there's a pattern in the existing site?
Yeah.
So you can see how the longer stretch of buildings has the parking so that you go from your car along the drive aisle to that building.
Yeah, we were trying to keep the drive aisles heading in the same direction towards
Right,
our
but you got to think about your customers and general safety and what's the best way to get from the store to the car.
Yeah.
And
we could also look at giving up
a space and doing
a road down the
walkway.
middle and giving them a middle lane for pedestrian.
Give up 4 spaces and
Sure.
put a pedestrian aisle in there. I don't think you meet that 60-foot tree radius thing either, because you're 12 spaces in between islands, and that gets you
past that.
Gets you past that. Yeah.
Okay.
I know this is kind of a minor little thing, but the bike rack, it appears to be impeding the sidewalk that's going to 78.
Yes, we've got a 10-foot sidewalk there.
Okay.
Y'all's ordinance shows like a 6x2 space needed for a bike, which would give us 4 feet at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to locate those out towards the road.
Yeah, maybe it turns the building or something, goes around, and potentially it could be in the back, not in the front door. I don't know.
We'll put it wherever you want us to.
Yeah, I think they have to be there on the site, but I don't think there's nothing that dictates it has to be at the front door.
Okay.
Has to be within a certain distance.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact number.
Okay.
If this were conceptual, just like height, scale, and mass, I think it would be good just looking at those items. But looking at, I mean, generally everything else, colors, the corner on Highway 78, just addressing the road too. I don't know that it's very successful, and I'd definitely veer away from red stucco, even though I know red is a big deal. It's also, there's a reason why it's so visual. It catches your eye, but you don't want to catch your eye on some of the detailing here. So
Yeah, or we'll try to find a more muted and better way to blend some of their colors in without them being so prominent.
To me, it's more at a conceptual level than it is preliminary. You probably should have submitted for conceptual.
Okay.
Really. So conceptual, we don't have a vote. You don't have to vote. We just give you comments, and you take the comments, and you come back. But preliminary, we have to vote.
Okay.
Right? Did you have any other comments, Greg?
No, I think from a preliminary point of view, I think the building is in the right place, which is good. I mean, I think that's where it should go. And then versus putting it where the parking is. I think that was the other option. And of the two, I think it's better where they have it. But there's some challenges with placing the building there. Those challenges with that building as a building type, as we've mentioned. It's exposed on four sides. I think you have to come back with a really strong strategy on what you're going to do, not only with the building, to make it something that people look by and say, oh, that's really kind of nice building, and still provide that reasonable landscape approach. And I know projects where it's hard to do anything because of where utilities are buried. So you have to go and look and, sharpen the pencil and see what you can and can't do along 78. That is 78, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know what you guys want to do with it. Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that. I just wanted. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to make. I'm comfortable with preliminary also, but with the caveat that you've got a lot to address in final, a lot. And it's not.
I think we can be amendable to all y'all's items and address them one way or the other.
And if we went that way, you may very well get when you come back, you may very well be at preliminary stage again. So you may be at final, but you may not. Sure.
I just, I'm not sure I can support preliminary because I don't want to see more of the same.
Well, I don't want it to seem like we're endorsing this.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but the big issue is the building in the right place?
Mm-hmm.
And is the front door in the right place? And is the loading in the right place?
Those are all
building
conceptual.
massing.
Those are all conceptual things
Right.
that we would have been great.
Right.
But architecturally, it's just unsuccessful.
Yeah. Agreed. So
But,
I'm fine.
architecturally, outside of the color scheme and the rear wall, is there any other major items?
Addressing Highway 78 would be a good idea since it does have street frontage. I know the entrance is right in the middle of the other side facing the parking lot, but
I'm missing what you're saying at the beginning of that. Addressing.
Creating something that is consistent from the front to the side, I guess. And I think Greg was referring to wrapping that corner somehow to give it a little bit of street presence, so that when you drive by, you're not going, "Oh, that's the side of a building."
Sure.
Just to kind of bring whatever architectural elements you have on the front, we try to use them creatively on the side too.
Tim, could you go to the building elevations again, please?
Yeah, I think they've already done that,
Yeah,
Chris.
I think we.
See what they've done?
If you zoom in, well, I guess you already see it on y'all's.
So the side is the top one on the top,
Yes.
or the side facing the site 78.
Screen the truck dock, thank God. But they don't want windows there, so we got to create something there.
Yeah, it's just, well, and the offset or the extruded stucco is okay. It would be better if it were muted from what it is on the side there. And so you're doing it. It's a general recommendation to, I'm trying to figure out the way to say this, to think what I said is to use the things that are successful on the front.
Sure.
And wrap them around the corner. The problem is the things that we have wrapping around the corner are not successful.
Yeah, because that's not a.
Is that a color issue or a material?
There's definitely a color issue.
Yeah.
The brick is good. You know,
The awnings are good. You like the awnings?
the awnings are all right. The awnings over nothing are
Like if
a
we had
tough
done,
sell.
if we had done the brick, just all the red brick, and then done the ethos in the gray instead, would that architecturally?
No.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
This is to be clear for me. This is not change it to brown brick, and you've done everything we've asked.
Okay.
It's not that. It's more. I think what Mr. Carpenter is saying is the awnings. Is awning over what, right? So it doesn't make sense that it's there. And what I said earlier was there needs to be more kind of period correct detailing. Study the windows, study the awnings. If there's brackets, study the brackets. The massing, the corbelling of the brick is much more design oriented and architecturally involved than it is just let's change it to brown. That's all they're asking for. Or let's remove, instead of painting it gray stucco, it's whatever color. No, it's a restudy of the facade. The massing's fine, but it's a restudy of all the materials. Make sense? Kinda.
Yes, yeah, we're just trying to mimic the rest of the center. So
Don't do that.
Okay, that then got it.
Yeah, you can mimic it with massing,
With the height.
but and the height, but not materials.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And I think Chris was more blunt than I was about.
No, I appreciate
no,
it.
no,
No. It was a gray area. I was trying to
about
get to the north line.
the perception of that area, and it has been not good. And this is a great opportunity to really do something to bump up the overall perception of that entire shopping center.
And I've seen some shopping centers that have exceptional buildings built out front, and it turns the whole center around. And eventually, that center is probably going to get renovated in another 20 years or whatever. So this can be the thing that, well, we got to make sure we're saving this building because it's so successful, instead of kind of repeating more of something that's unsuccessful.
And I'm assuming do we have the architect here? And can you bring him next time, him or her?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
I think that'd be good, because we'd like to kind of have him on, him or her, them, explain what the concept is, what the challenge is, what the concept is, and how this thing's gonna be awesome.
Sure.
to add one thing since we're all here together, or we could start on our redesign effort. When we change these colors, change the color palette for your ideas and suggestions, and look for a start with kind of a brown tone brick, and then we look for accent colors as well that are muted and earth tones, and do that. The colors we're heading back towards are already on the adjoining shopping center. You know, it's the tans, it's the grays, it's the browns. Is that what you're looking for?
No, no,
It
no.
doesn't sound like it, but when we put
Not at
brown
all.
brick on there, the complementary colors that go with it are going to could end up in that same family, and it doesn't sound like what you want.
What I'm looking for is colors similar to what you see downtown Somerville, right behind you, on the left side, because that's Somerville had a brick plant, so most of the bricks are reflective of something that was made locally, right? So these buildings are examples of that. Not that side of the road, because a lot of that is painted brick, but this side of the road, not what's at that shopping center now.
So those accent colors that y'all's view would merge in well over there. What if certainly bright red and bright blue aren't going to do it. We're not coming back, and we won't ask for that. What colors do you feel like would match well there?
I think the challenge is to have
separation from the center.
We can't tell you, oh, use a red, use a brown, have your architect come here or come on the Google map and look at what we see right around in here, and they'll be able to pick some of that up, because we don't want to tell you, well, use blue, use red, and you come back and go, well, I used red. That's what you said, use red. It's like, yeah, well, you didn't use it right, and then we're just kind of keep going back and forth. Have your architect put on their design hat and kind of look at downtown. That's really the best way to kind of get there.
And I'm not sure it needs an accent. I mean, there's some buildings.
Yeah.
The Water Authority's building, if you look closely at that, it's all the same color brick, but the brick comes in and out of the wall up at the top. Little details like that were very common in the sort of utilitarian warehouse type buildings of the 1900s. And they didn't do a lot of color, they didn't do a lot of limestone trim, but they played with the brick to make the building facade more interesting.
And you see that here too. They didn't have a red stucco panel or any stucco panel. It was just maybe a different color of brick. So that is a very good point. This has too much variety in color. This theoretically could be all one color brick.
Well, that's the feedback we love hearing. So make sure when we show back up, what we have for you is a whole lot closer, or what you want, and not go back and.
And we don't want to do that either.
Right. So the more we hear from y'all, the better, and that's great feedback.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so when I look at it, I think, oh, that looks like buildings I've seen every time I drive down a strip. Usually it's a state highway that goes through these towns, and it's Burger King, McDonald's, and it's, they all kind of start to look the same, and we're really looking for buildings that are custom tuned for Somerville.
Sure. Right. We're here to blend in. We need the town support. That's what we want to do.
You'll get there. All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for denial, preliminary approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Free study.
Is there a second for denial of preliminary?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of denying preliminary approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ready. Thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
The next item is multi-tenant retail building on Berkeley Circle. If you could give us a little context to help us a little bit.
Sure. My name's Jeff Carper with Carper Civil. This parcel is the residual of old Berkeley Circle. As was converted to Lighthouse or Old Light Road. Passes by Wasabi. There are two parcels here. They're going to be combined, and the building is nestled back into the southwest corner.
Which one? Sorry. This one here? It's just to the south of Wasabi.
So the proposed plan is 11,900 square feet. There will be 4,000 square feet of dining. The on-site parking is above the 200%, so we intend to provide some pervious parking on the northern side along the existing parking in Wasabi. And I guess speaking in context of the placement of the building, we did study fronting the building along it's labeled Sheep Island there. I think it's now called Berkeley Circle. However, placing the building in that in the north-south direction essentially blocked all access without reducing the footprint the owner was seeking, and also I think Old Light Road is now the main thoroughfare that we're looking to share and access with the Wasabi restaurant. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify for me, where is Wasabi on this plan?
Wasabi is due north.
Okay.
So that the landscaping strip that runs east-west is between the two parking lots.
So I'm coming from Azalea Square and the shopping center. I'm coming from Azalea Square from the south. And,
from the south.
Yeah, or south. Yeah. Come from the interstate up Old Light Road. There's a field right there. This building is going in that field. I keep on going, and there's Wasabi. I'm just past it. Got it. Thank you.
Essentially, where the north edge of the parking line is where the temporary road. I don't know if you're familiar with the temporary road, but that's where that is. Just throwing everybody off. In listening to the board's comments on the previous applicants, I hear you all loud and clear about the shielding of the rear of the building, and the architect and I have had the conversation. You know, there always has to be a rear to the building, and so, but very interested to hear in ways that we can accomplish this. Just while I was listening to the discussions, I wondering if the dumpster corral, will be constructed of similar materials to the building. If a combination of that and a screen wall could be used to facilitate that, hiding of the rear, or if it's some other method that the board is looking for. Sure.
All right, let's roll through it, and then that'll help inform us on kind of how the space is being used.
Okay.
And then we can comment on that. But thank you.
You can also look at that building, nothing but Bunt Cake and Burnout Fitness is in, right on Berkeley Circle, which is now changed to Old Light Road or whatever. It's behind where the Sticky Fingers used to be.
I'm not familiar.
It's, you know where Parks Plaza is, Parks Auto Parts Store
Yes.
right on North Main Street.
Yes, sir.
The traffic light right there that takes you to this site.
Yes, sir.
Bundt Cake is right there. It's the second building on the right.
Okay.
You can handle the rear of this building as simply probably as that was handled.
Okay.
Which was a parapet wall and an interior gutter.
Parapet. These are
To hide the
architectural terms that
equipment, to hide the building.
and I'm sorry, it's called bucket. Oh, nothing but okay. Okay. Very good. From staff comments, we've provided some. There's an existing sidewalk along Old Light that was constructed just recently. We're going to be extending the sidewalk along Berkeley Circle from north to south and providing access into our site from there. You can see bicycle racks located east-west sides of the building. We try to incorporate an area for planting on the west side of the building, foundation plants, and have I guess move the site ever so slightly to the east in order to accommodate a larger buffer along Old Berkeley Circle or Sheep Island Road, as it is. Tim, if you go to the next slide. This is just merely an exhibit showing delivery trucks and trash truck access for the staff. The landscape plan, obviously, this is just getting developed, but showing the planting islands with trees and coverage. That plan will be further developed as we move along. Again, Tim Hazel Baker couldn't be here with Live Oak Consulting, but I'll certainly do everything I can to convey architectural questions. But I think one of the comments was regarding the transparency, facade transparency, and then obviously the rear facade, how we're going to address that. And the questions about the mechanical units, the antennas that the HVAC units will be located at the rear of the building, again, appropriately screened. So nothing will be on the roof.
So it's on the ground?
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And so there is the eastern side of the building will be some kind of, so you're right, there will need to be some kind of, I guess, parapet or something to screen that.
Somebody will have to screen electrical panels.
Bill, you got to hit your mic.
Excuse me. Sometime you'll have to screen electrical panels and stuff like that too.
Okay.
Now, what elevation, what wall you put them on, but you got to screen them.
Okay.
Ideally, they would not be on the roadside, right? Or they have to be screened. Or a wall that you put them on the inside or something.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Can you talk through your parking provided, parking required?
Sure. So yeah, we are providing, I guess, more parking than needed for the site, but the John Tang, who is developing this, also owns Wasabi. Parking is always an issue, and so there will be a joint use agreement provided, and the antennas during the evening dinner hours, the overflow parking will be located here.
Good. Okay. Do you know how many over you are providing?
I believe we're 40 over.
Okay.
They're within
Sure.
what?
Yeah.
About 200%. So.
Okay.
I believe.
Do you have anything else before we really jump into discussion?
Tear me apart. No, sir, I don't.
No, we'll do that.
Are there any other drawings in this package?
All right, again, I preface everything with it, but I'm not an architect. But I think I like the use of brick. I think the awnings look good. Storefront looks good. Site plan, I remember there was no landscaping between the parking lot and building. We'd want to see that to soften it. What I don't like about the building is the arched parapet in the middle. It's kind of like this 1980s classical thing to do, which I think really looks super dated. So I'm not in favor of that. I think the front facade is all in the same plane. Like Greg said earlier on another applicant, it'd be good if the facade comes in and out a little bit. Maybe the two end panels are on one plane and then the three center ones either come in or come out, even if it's just a brick width, right, or depth.
Sure.
I don't know if it needs to be more than one color brick or not. I mean, I know there's two colors, but I don't think it necessarily has to have two panels or one color and then the three are different. Maybe not. I think the rear of the building needs a little bit more work because this kind of assumes that this is a rear building that's never going to be seen. It's backing up to woods and you'll never see it. This really needs to be, I think, a four-sided building where it all looks good. I do think while I like the canopies on the front, they are a little bit monotonous because it's the same one every time, just repeated 6 or 7 times or whatever. And I echo Bill's statements on the electrical panels. You need to see where those are going to be, and they need to be appropriately screened, whether you put a wall and then they're on the inside of the wall so you can't see it or whatever. Same with HVAC. I think the site plan needs a little bit more room for green space. It looked like it was, let's offset the property line 60 feet, then do that. But I think there needs to be a little bit more green space on the ends all the way around the building, just so you just so you have more green, so you can bring in some trees that'll help break up the facade of this. Really would like to see maybe a few trees along the front, just small trees to break it up and get as much shade as you can in there, rather than saying, and not that you did this, but all right, code says 5 trees, we got 5 trees. Think about it, design it just like the architect did, and make the landscaping, I think, particularly here, look lush and appropriate, and not just code minimum. I think it would be more successful. But I think that's my major items.
I'm not a landscape architect, but I've never said that.
But you could plant a tree.
I could plant a tree. Oh my gosh. So looking at the rendering first, I agree with everything Mr. Campo said. One of the challenges I think on this, the way it's designed with the corbels and the canopies where they are, is that the building signage for the spaces is going to be up really high on the elevation, and it might get pretty gacked up because of that. It's just too high, and if you go back, that curved parapet in the middle is not actually in the middle. If you go to the drawing, elevation drawing, Tim, other one, yeah. If you look at the bottom drawing, that left side has 2 bays that are actually wider than the rest of the building, the other 5. And so what we end up with is a kind of a curved parapet that sort of looks like it's going to be in the middle, but it won't. The canopies are bigger, which takes away a little bit of that over rhythm that they had, which you had, but I think this should be looked at without that curved parapet and with more variation in the plane, the facade, so that we can start to get some shadow lines. And, it looks like some priority is being given to the two bays on the end, on the left side, because they're a little bit bigger. I can't see the dimensions, but they look bigger.
They are. That's where the restaurant.
Okay. So why not let the corner be something rather than putting something in the middle that isn't really in the middle? And that way you're kind of defining that. If that's really the anchor of the space, then anchor it really well. But along those lines, I kind of just wanted to add that in addition to what Mr. Campo said regarding the rest of the comments.
I would like to get some better understanding of the site concept. As I look at the site plan, and I don't really understand why the building is where it is.
Okay.
Now, I agree with you about the orientation, and I can see how that big of a footprint is not going to work very well facing Sheep Island, but in the up-down direction, and so that was one question, is why is it there? Why isn't it here? Why isn't it there? And where are the customers coming from? What is the customer approach to the building?
Where is it as shown on here?
Mm-hmm.
They would be coming in the north side of the building.
Okay, so the curb cut on Sheep Island is service only, you're thinking? Okay.
Well, is it service only?
Yeah.
No, but and we haven't gotten the traffic study yet, but I believe that the bulk of the traffic will be coming from the shared access with Wasabi.
And is
Old Light.
there any intent for those two buildings to relate to each other? Or are they just
Architecturally?
Site planning wise?
Well, they are going to be interconnected, the parking lot.
Greg, I think what you maybe to kind of take that idea a little bit further is the building could have been up in the first bay of parking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it addresses the street more. So I think Greg is saying that's kind of semi-rhetorical is, okay, why is it there versus not going up a bay? Because it kind of cleans it up a little bit. Again, this is conceptual, right? Just remember that. So you could slide that building up and to the right, gets closer to the street, and that leaves more of the site open. Maybe the parking would work a little bit better. And the other thing I just picked up on is the left side parking is really just offsetting the property line. That geometry has nothing to do with the parking lot, right? The rest of it is kind of this north, south, east, west plane, but the left parking bay is somewhat arbitrarily facing almost an imaginary line in a way because it's the property line, but that might need to be a hard right angle, which may or may not help you. Just something to think about.
Yeah, I guess what I'd like to see is for having the site planner, who could be the architect, could be the civil engineer, to come in and say, this is why the building is here. This is why it's faced here. Because you look at a drawing and say, okay, is that why? And it's nice to have somebody.
Greg, the way the building is now, employees park in the back by the trash cans.
Right.
Customers park in front and they face the front elevation. If you move the building up and to the right, everybody's going to park in back and the back has to become the front. And it gets all mixed up with the Wasabi. So they're probably in the right place.
But it could help justify having a building looks good on all four sides too, though.
Right. And I'm not saying it is in the wrong place, but all I'm saying is part of the process. It's helpful when somebody comes in and says, these are where the people are coming from, these are the cars coming, this is how we're going to relate to our neighbors next door, which don't even show on the drawing, and kind of walk us through the steps of, okay, it's this proportion for this reason, and this is the ideal lease space.
Tell the story.
Tell the story, and we can say, okay, that makes sense instead of just kind of guessing at why
I feel
things
like I
are.
failed you there, 'cause we have gone, we did provide essentially 4 different scenarios with the building north-south and push as far to Old Light Road. And I'd be happy to provide those to you all. And ultimately, this is what the owner felt with knowing how his business works. But to your point, yes, the intent is the employees will be in the rear, and all the customer base will be in the front of the building. Rotating the building against Berkeley Circle, the frontage and the rear of the building are essentially still the same. You still have the same issues of the rear buildings either facing Old Light Road or it's facing Sheep Island or it's facing the dental office. And we even did it the other way as well. And so as far as screening the rear of the building, I think that's an issue that we all decide is just hazardous to do this. But as far as achieving the parking counts that the owner is looking for to share between the buildings, this is the solution that provided the flow of the numbers that they needed.
Other than that, I agree with the comments about the architecture. I think the building is just kind of odd.
One thing they're gonna have a problem with this building, there's no sign ban here for your tenants to put a sign on. Chris mentioned that. But there's literally no, you don't have a good place to put signs for tenants, and they live and breathe by their signage.
Sure. And so there is and it's not part of our design package, but the area just south of the shared entrance is where the owner wants to put together a common sign for both properties.
But there's no signs on the building.
That would be for a monument sign. I'm talking about signage on the buildings above the storefront, like you see on strip shopping centers.
Yeah.
There's a reason they put a sign above their doors so that people can find them. And that's, you don't have a lot of opportunity.
Unless it's on the awning like you do on Main. Unless it's on the awning like you do on Main here.
You could do that, or you could take the corbel all the way up higher so that you have space for signs from the bracket support to the corbel. That could be a signage panel.
I think to do kind of the landscaping we've talked about too, your building's going to shrink. It's going to have to come in, 5 feet off the front. So thinking at least 5 feet is going to be coming out of that. Maybe on the side that needs to be wider too, because that's not enough to put trees in. And and maybe this is a discussion for another time, but why does the back of the building have to look like the back of the building and it's the service side and all that? Why couldn't it be just as good? It's just that happens to be the employee entrance. There's buildings around town that do that. It doesn't have to be, let's just kind of put minimal materials and all that. But they are just asking for conceptual comments. So,
well, I mean, the back of the building is where the kitchen's going to be. You can't egress or enter. The public can't go through kitchens. So, I mean, the kitchen's going to be in the back. So they're utilitarian, and you don't get the opportunity to put storefront in the back unless you use spandrel glass or something.
Sure, but
like
it could
that.
be brick, for example.
Oh yeah, it should be brick. It ought to be brick.
It's shown.
Well, they don't really even need the parapet if they don't have equipment up there, but if they've got exhaust fans, intake, and exhaust fans for the roof, then they're gonna need it. It'll make it look better. Internal gutters are a pain.
is that enough information to kind of help you? Any other comments? Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your. Take a 5-minute or so break.
Go
back. Go through the back that way. Yeah. I always go that way. I don't know why. It just seems longer.
I know.
All right, the next item up, well, we're going to skip Trolley Road Optometrist. Is a Trolley Road Optometrist.
Wow.
Tim, would you mind reading staff comments real quick?
This is a request for preliminary approval. Staff comments are as follows. Photometric plan, signage plan will be required. Tree protection board will be required. A minimum of 14 parking spaces are required. The plaza shows 28, which is exactly 200% of the maximum or the minimum. A pedestrian connection to the sidewalk and old trolley will be required. The landscape plan is not showing the 60-foot radii for canopy coverage for the parking lot landscaping. Generally, the design of the building is consistent with the design guidelines. The facade is proposed to be almost entirely cement board siding with a brick base. The roof is standing seam metal, and the facade transparency requirement is not being met.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so this is for preliminary approval for the new location of Davenport Vision. He is moving from his current location, also on Old Trolley Road, and moving down to a parcel that he bought next to the Goodwill on Old Trolley. Can you go to the first page? The site plan. So we laid out the site plan basically to try to preserve the larger oaks on the site. You can see the tree protection is shown on the 2 large oaks on the front of the lot and on the side facing Goodwill. The parking is done so that the employees will park around the back, and then the retail and customers and patients will park around the front. Am I going to the rendering, please?
Which one do you want?
The rendering.
What?
Rendering?
Sorry.
So the facade has a brick wainscot, and then we have cement board siding with standing seam metal canopies and roof. And then the windows are storefront, and due to the use of the building being an optometrist office, we did minimize the amount of windows due to the fact that their rooms need to be basically dark when they're performing their tests. So that is part of the reason for the lack of windows. But what the architect did was kind of create a faux window look beneath the windows to try to create the illusion with the cement board trim that the windows extended to the ground.
Anything else?
No.
So could you go back, Tim, to the site plan? And let's talk about building placement. And I know you said you worked around trees, but could you be a little bit more specific or detail on that? I know just from driving by, this is that site, I think, that almost looks like a park because it's been maintained pretty good. It's got these trees that kind of populate the site. So did you save trees? Looks like you saved trees along the front. Is that right?
Yes, if you'll go back, or that one shows it too. Yeah, so we saved the 38 and 48 inch large oak, and then the 17-inch oak up against the Goodwill side of the property. There were 2 larger caliber birch trees where the detention pond is shown, but we had the arborist come out and he said that they look like they're in poor condition. So that's why we've kind of reoriented. We did have 3 smaller ponds trying to save those. That's why the ponds just kind of shrunk and narrowed along that southern side of the property. There are some trees that we're saving along the back side of the property. There's a small parcel that this owner also owns behind it that we're not developing, but behind that there's a residential area, so we're trying to keep all the trees on that back side.
Ready? And did you consider having the parking only in the side and rear rather than, did you consider having Old Charlie Road, trees, building, and then parking behind it rather than parking on 3 sides of it? Did you consider that, or what are your thoughts on that?
So not having parking in the front. Is that what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying? So the owner prefers to have parking in the front. A lot of his business is his retail business. That's actually the whole front half of the building is dedicated to retail. So that was the thought in kind of keeping it easy access for people to come in and out. It's also kind of a narrow property, so
But it,
too many more spaces on the side.
yeah, but it is,
To me, like the building should be where the parking lot is to the right.
it's 2 dead-end parking spaces or parking lots, which is
Like
not.
from a site planning point of view, it seems that's where the building should be.
Moved up some, and then the parking's in the rear.
Well, I don't know the parking. I don't really care about parking. You know, I think you got to start with where does a building belong on the site? And then you kind of deal with parking the best you can after you put the building where you don't like say, well, this is where the parking's great. What's left over and put the building there? You know, the building has to drive the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the best place to put the building to leverage the value of its presence relative to the street? And then you kind of deal with parking. You know, people park, you know, you go out in downtown Somerville, it's amazing where people manage to park because, you know, if you're motivated, you're going to park. And just see too many projects where it's all about parking. People will park. They'll find a way to park. There's 100 different ways to park.
So we did have one iteration that we could maybe take a look at again, where there was just 1 row of parking in front of the building, and then behind the building had 2 rows. That might be something that will bring the building up to the front a little more.
Would help
I think the parking should not be in the front.
at all.
Period.
Yeah.
And the looks like construction activity is within 16 feet of the 48-inch live oak. That's a 48, you said?
Yeah.
And I think that is way too close to that tree for that type of construction activity. And the parking to the rear could actually be, instead of kind of north-south, it could be parallel with the long property line. So it's just a bay that comes up and it turns around and it goes out, rather than having this
That
dead
construction
parking.
level was set by the town arborist.
It was set by him?
Yes, he allows that.
He did review
So,
it with
yes,
the
he
civil
reviewed that.
engineer.
And building construction is gonna be far more disruptive than parking lot construction of that tree. And also the branch, the canopy of the tree would be more, it can hang over parking, but it can't hang over a building, so. I'm familiar with the property. I've looked at it about 3 or 4 different times, and you've done a good job with the trees. And I don't think there's an issue really because of what you've got there.
Yeah, I think the owner's thought at least was that because we're keeping those large trees on the front, the visibility isn't great anymore. So pushing the building back, he was okay with. But I do see what you're saying with the, you know, maybe moving the parking around, and we can see if we can try to squeeze them in along the property line that borders the north.
I think the trees are being impacted on at least, I mean, you're bisecting the trees. So it's with this drain pipe. So it's really, and that's, if that's 16 feet on the left side, that maybe that's 20 on the right. And I think that's detrimental to, you're impacting both of them, you know? Whereas if the drain line, I understand things have to drain, but if the drain line is not there, the trees will be more healthy, and we won't, you could build this whole thing and we may not see the trees decline for the first couple of years. We'll go out there 3, 4, 5 years from now, and the trees are suffering, and then we're going to take them out and all this, and it's just like, well, you know what? It's because there's a drain there, and we got too close with construction activity. So I think that's something you just need to take a look at.
We can take a look at that. The curb cut is existing, so that might have been
Sure.
part of the issue.
Can we look at the floor plans again? Because you had mentioned some of the rooms are not going to have
It should be further down in the packet.
windows. So that looks like a pretty big retail reception. So that would all have glass on the front part.
Yes, so we have glass on the front. The sides are used for the glasses displays. So that's why we have the transom windows that are above those. We could potentially add another bank of those windows on the planned south side of the retail space. And then you'll see the one exam room's in the middle of the space, so it has no natural light, and then the two up against the exterior wall are just transom windows that will have a shade on the inside.
So would it make sense to put the retail on the other wall?
You just have a door, move the door from the right to the top.
I was thinking that has to be solid. Be better over here where it's not as important to have. Is there an elevation of the north facade? What does that look like? I guess it's the lower left. Looks pretty good.
There's some renderings of it too if you go a little further down. I think one more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think architecturally it's very nice.
Yeah. That looks pretty good.
Yep. Very nice. I agree. I agree totally. I would consider swapping it with the parking behind it and just kind of exploring that a little bit and bring it up closer to the road. I think it would really
If they
help
did
the
that,
visibility of
they would have to do that. The only way the building would work would be if they flip-flopped it, if you put the parking all in the back. You'd almost have to reverse the whole thing, because
You mean like rotate the whole building?
yeah, you'd almost have to, because your retail would have to be where your parking is. It's not feasible not to have parking in front of your retail.
Could they not just walk past the building to get to the front door?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess it's similar to the Wasabi project. It may be in the right spot, but it would be helpful if somebody walked us through, the why and explain why is it here? And it might be in the right place. I don't know. It's hard to know when you just look at the drawing and say, does it have to be there?
We did have it flipped to the north side of the property, but we weren't able to save as many trees because the driveway kind of had to curve around the building since the existing curb cut's already there. So that's why we kind of put it back on the south side. And then the reason really for all the parking out front is like you said, that the retail is kind of like a lot of his business. So the idea was you could have more opportune parking in the front to be able to go in and buy merchandise.
It's not like it's a sea of parking.
Yeah, I think we have 5 parking spaces.
I think the building looks so good that it kind of helps their case. I think I would like them to look at, the feasibility of moving parking, the feasibility of removing the drain line, and they can look at it, honestly look at it and say, we've looked at it and here's why it doesn't work for us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that for me.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Any further discussion? So they're asking for preliminary approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, preliminary approval based on comments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Good. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, I guess we're all done here.
It worked twice.
This is the hardest one.
You should
Yes, I
have,
know, this is going to be a lot to go over.
should have gone first.
I'm Kim Winter. I'm with Artesian Springs Day Spa. We're at 505 North. And that is where our house is. Our building is a home. And we would like to put a storage building on the back. If you look at the back of our house from Highway 78, there is a screen porch, and we're putting it on, here's the screen porch, we're putting it on this side, and here's 78 over here. And we feel like the screen porch will cover most of it as well. And also we have about 15 foot of privacy fence that was up there originally that will cover some of it as well.
Alrighty, Tim, do you have any other documentation with this? Let's see, there's 8 more pages or something.
Yeah, there's
Photos.
This is
Yes.
the proposed location. That's
We're
what-
actually going on the other side now of where that screen porch is. Dawn originally was going to put it there, but we have changed it now to the other side of the
So-
screen porch.
not here, but over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I really, you guys get to, when it comes to the accessory structures that are visible from the public right of way, it's kind of up to you. There's nothing specifically dictating in the ordinance as it addresses that. So it kind of just says it's up to the board.
I think that would be fine. I would paint it kind of to match the building, the siding on the building.
It's a brick home. It's a painted brick. It's brown painted brick.
Oh, I thought I saw some siding
I
up
saw
there.
There's a picture.
Up on the above, there's some siding.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
up there.
is.
I just painted to match that,
Just paint it.
or to match the brick.
Paint it to match the brick.
Okay.
And if there is any accent, that it's that blue or the gray of the shutters.
Okay.
Great.
Right. Or the white. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just paint it to match the building.
Other than that,
Any further discussion?
she's waited a long time. We should at least discuss it.
So how you doing? You doing okay?
I mean,
All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
motion for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Approval with conditions, right?
To paint it, yeah.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very,
Thanks for
very
waiting.
much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for your
Thank you,
patience.
Tim.
Tim, do you have any other business?
No further business on this agenda.
All right. Bill, I think I heard a motion for adjournment.
You did.
Seconded by Carpus. All signify by saying aye or leaving.